Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fight Song Sports Podcast. As always, my name is Ty Hansen. Joining me today, Bryson Lewis. Bryson, we got quite a bit we're going to cover today. Super Bowl just got done. Obviously on Sunday, good game there. Rams able to pull it out late. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow just couldn't pull it out for the Bengals, although he played well. That offensive line ultimately failed him in the end. But we got some basketball we're going to talk. We got some golf. And baseball starts this weekend. We're going to touch on that here at the end. We'll open it up with OU basketball. They had a pretty eventful couple games here. Picked up a big win over Texas Tech to start. Moja Gibson, 30 points, 8 of 11 from three. A big win for OU there. And we'll let you open it up there with what you thought about that game.
Yeah, obviously a very impressive win over a top 10 Texas Tech team at the time. Mo Gibson just couldn't miss from deep, which was good to see. The team played well overall, played really good defense, and Tech is the number one overall defense in the country, so putting up 70 was no small task. And it gave them a little bit of confidence heading up to Lawrence, which is always a difficult place to play up there. Unfortunately, they dropped that game by 2 points to Kansas. Mo Gibson, polar opposite of the person he was against Tech, 0 points. He was in foul trouble the whole way. Only attempted 2 field goals, and both of them were kind of forced. I want to say one of them hit the side of the backboard, and he fouled out towards the end. They were mainly led by Jordan Goldwire, who had 20 points, and Tanner Gross, who had 19. And, Goldwire, he hasn't really been that scorer for them. He's been pretty good defensively and just a guy that kind of distributes the ball, former Duke player. But he played really good against Kansas. They only turned the ball over 9 times, as a team. And that's been something they've struggled with a lot the whole season. Down the stretch, no free throws attempted after the 13:03 mark in the second half. They just kind of stopped driving the ball, stopped taking what was given to them, and just never really got back into the rhythm.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously when, you've got Emoji Gibson who lights it up against Texas Tech, goes 8 of 11 from three and 30 points. And then you head into a big game against Kansas. You need obviously another big performance from him and somebody to step up and be a leading scorer. And he gives you a donut. He gives you 0. Obviously foul trouble, as you mentioned, but I got a guy that scores 30 points and shoots over 50% from three in one game, and then the next game shoots twice. That seems like an issue to me. It's just a lack of consistent scoring. And then, you mentioned no free throws after about the 13-minute mark there. That seems to be another issue, that your 3-point guy isn't making shots, isn't even taking shots, and then you're not even getting free throws. It's not that they're able to get to the rim and they're getting fouled and getting free throws. Your 3-point guy isn't shooting and has 0 points, and then you're not getting to the rim and shooting free throws. So that's a big issue. I mean, that's almost the entire game of basketball on offense there, and you don't have it. I mean, no free throws, no threes. That's a good way to lose a game. And we touched on a couple episodes ago, but the close games that OU had, and this is another one. I mean, they lose by 2 to Kansas. Obviously, Lawrence, very tough place to play, but had a lead for a long time and couldn't capitalize on it. Yeah, up 8, and you have a scoring drought of almost 7 minutes as we have here. It's just not a way to win, and these are games that they need to pick up, and games that look good in the resume, and these are games that turn good teams into great teams. And I think this is a good team, but they're just not great. Great teams win these games. And even when you're not playing well, good teams find a way to win. Great teams find a way to win. And this team seems to be finding every way to lose almost, because I really do think it's a good team for sure, but they just seem to be finding ways to lose instead of finding ways to win. So yeah, that game definitely hurt. But they got a chance at redemption last night. They got the Red River rivalry against Texas in Norman. And another ranked team, another good team. Texas is a great team. And it's the same story. I mean, 80-78 in overtime.
Yeah, they just didn't really play very well in the first half. They they were only down a few points at halftime, but they only shot the ball 31%. It was really a miracle that the game was that close. I think Texas was shooting somewhere around 48% in the first half. They early in the second half, they went on a little run. They were up 5, and then all of a sudden, an 11-0 Texas run turned into a 15-3 Texas run, and just like that, they were down 7 points. They brought it all the way back, had a shot to win it at the end of regulation. It looked like the play was set up for Ethan Chagua, the center. And at that point, when they set the play up for me, it's 0 points. I don't know if that's the guy you want taking that shot right there. I mean, he was wide open. The play was run perfectly, but it was just kind of the story of his night. He missed again. They shot 5 of 23 from 3, and that's never going to get it done in college basketball.
Yeah.
For a team that shoots top 10 in the country inside the 3-point line, you just at some point you just got to know when you're cold and just start taking something else. They do get it to overtime. Obviously, a missed shot to win it regulation. They only missed 1 shot in overtime, and that was the final shot. That was just kind of a heave from Harkless. They turned it over a few times, just played a little bit of sloppy basketball. And I mean, they got a rebound down 2 with 4 seconds left in overtime, and Tanner Groves had the rebound, and they just looked like they had no plan going up the court. Tanner Groves takes it up basically into the half court and then just kind of passes it to Harkless with like a second and a half on the clock, and he's just got to force one up. And they were just unprepared, really, in that possession.
Yeah, you obviously were there to watch the game, but I think it just kind of goes back to the same story of finding a way to lose instead of finding a way to win. And another close loss. I mean, this is a team that is playing great teams really close. I mean, they're not getting blown out. It is a good team, but they're just not closing. And I think that's a big issue, especially headed into the crucial part of the year, heading into the Big 12 conference tournament and then into March Madness. That's something that great teams do, and they advance very far when they do it well. Teams that like Texas Tech, Kansas, Texas, these are who you're playing in late in the year. I mean, yeah, they got a bad schedule to close the year, really tough. But at the same time, you get to turn around and play these teams here in a couple of weeks in the conference tournament and into March Madness. So it's almost a blessing in disguise, because you're not playing bad teams and then all of a sudden you have to turn it on. I mean, you're playing good teams headed into the important part of the year. But you got to find a way to win these games. I mean, this is how good teams advance in the tournament. And when you're losing by 2 points, back-to-back games and losing, we have on here 6 losses by less than 5 points. That's not good come tournament time. That's a heartbreaker. That's a sitting at home really early in March and watching the rest of the tournament. So it's just something that I think they need to turn around, and I think they can. I mean, you saw against Texas Tech that they played really well, and they beat a good Texas Tech team by 15 points. Like it's there. This team could beat these teams, but they got to clean it up, and it's exactly what we talked about, a couple of weeks ago in our podcast where we covered basketball. It's the same thing, and I don't know. They got to change it. So I don't know. They'll be interesting to follow down the stretch for sure.
Yep. As you mentioned, I mean, they're 14-12 with that loss to Texas, and as you mentioned, 6 of those losses are by 5 points. I mean, less than 5. You just can't. You can't do that and make a deep run of the tournament. They got 5 games remaining here. They're going to close it out with away games to Iowa State, Texas Tech. Then they'll have 2 home games against Oklahoma State and West Virginia, and then regular season finale at Kansas State. The way they're playing really good basketball. They're just not closing out these games, which, I mean, they're playing. I mean, that's 3 straight ranked teams, but you're going to have to find a way to win 3 of those games if you want to make the tournament. And the way they're playing, they should win both the home games against Oklahoma State and West Virginia. They're going to have to find one on the road, which is, I mean, you're probably not winning at Texas Tech. You beat them at once handedly, but it's just tough to beat the same team twice, especially when you're going on the road to a place where the crowd is just electric at Texas Tech.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So it's down to Iowa State, which is the next game up this weekend, and then Kansas State to wrap up the season. You're gonna have to win one of those two going into the conference tournament, and hope that's enough to get you in.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. They got to find a way to win a couple games late. So we'll flip it over to the other basketball team in Norman. How about the women's team that OU's had this year? 20-4, number one offense in the Big 12. A really good team, and you've definitely seen a little bit more of them than I have this year. What do you think about the team that the women have this year?
Yeah, obviously off to a very good start. 20-4, as you said. They've got a new coach in Jenny Bronchek, who took over for Sherry Cole in the offseason, who retired. Clearly, the talent was there. Maybe the message just got lost in translation between Cole and the players. Not really sure what was going on, but they definitely had a few rough seasons. But they've looked really good this year, really good offensively, as you said. They swept Baylor and split games against Texas this season, who are both top 10 teams. And obviously, Baylor's been very good at women's basketball for the past decade or so. They're led by Maddie Williams, who leads them in scoring and rebounding, and Taylor Robertson, who can also shoot the ball really well, the all-time Big 12 three-point leader. They're projected as a 3 seed right now, and women's basketball in the tournament tends to go pretty chalk. But I mean, they've obviously swept Baylor and they've split a game with Texas. They're definitely a team that can make a run, maybe get to the Elite Eight or Final Four.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, anytime you start a season 20-4, you got to like that. And yeah, as you mentioned, sweeping Baylor, a women's basketball powerhouse, probably a top 5 program in the country over the last 5-10 years. And as you said, the women's basketball usually goes chalk. But with that being said, you're also a 3 seed, and when those top teams do get beat, they get beat by higher seeds later down the road. And that being a team like OU, who's already done it this year against Baylor and Texas. But I definitely think this is a very good team, and a team that definitely can win headed down the stretch into the Big 12 tournament, and even into March. A good team. I mean, middle of February, you're 20-4. You can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what they can do in the postseason. We'll go ahead and flip it back to you for some Nebraska basketball.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, I don't remember. I think it was last week that we had talked about it. It's been a very interesting year for Nebraska. It has not been great. At the time, 0 Big Ten wins. It lost like 10 in a row or something. It wasn't good. But we started turning things around. I say started. We got a game against Minnesota. We win 78-65. I mean, it was a great game. It was a great win. We played really well on both sides of the ball, which was really nice because as I had mentioned last week, the defense was really an issue. I mean, just giving up tons of points. We only give up 65 against Minnesota. Only give up 22 points in the paint. I mean, that's how you win a basketball game right there. I know it's Minnesota, but I mean, when you're at the bottom of the Big Ten, everybody's above you. Everybody's a better team than you. So, you pick up a win against Minnesota, who, not the best team in the world, but obviously, Big Ten basketball is good. Alonzo Verge, 22 points. He played really well, shot 8 of 12. And it was a good win. And I think everybody kind of needed it for both within the team and the fans outside. I mean, haven't had a winning season at all this year, and then we pick up a win finally and a conference win, and people kind of start to give a sigh of relief and kind of a thank God that we finally got one. But we played well. It was solid, and it felt like a game we could build off of. And then we get a game against the rival. We get to play Iowa, a good team. Iowa is, but we had some momentum heading in there. Finally got a win. But it didn't go well. I mean, we lose 98-75. We gave up 50 points in the paint. I mean, the game before we gave up 65 points total, and then this game we give up 50 just in the paint alone. That's not a good way to win. We scored 25 points in the first half and then 50 in the second half. So we doubled our offensive production in the second half. Alonzo Verge scores just 5 points. Scored 22 against Minnesota, and then you get 5 against Iowa. It's not good. Not good when you got a guy who's scoring and then the next game he only gives you 5. The McGowan's brothers, who are supposed to be the better players on the team and the leaders, they combined together to go 5 of 20. They 18 points as a whole between the two and 7 turnovers. When 3 of your starters give you 5 and then 18 combined, so 23, it's not good. I mean, I don't know what to say about it because it looked so good against Minnesota. It looked like we were finally going to turn around and start playing some winning basketball and just, salvage what we could of the season. And then, you turn around and play Iowa and you give up 98. I mean, you're not going to win any games in college giving up 98. And then, what appeared to be good defense in the paint the night before against Minnesota, you only give up, I believe, 22. Yep, 22 points in the paint. And then you give up 50 to Iowa. That's it's not going to cut it. It's just the same. It's the same that it has been all year. And I don't know where this team goes. I mean, you got a couple of games left, pick up a few, and I don't know. And then I think the offseason gets interesting. So yeah, so we'll see there. But we'll flip it over. We'll talk about the women's team. This has been a good team to follow this year. 19-6. They're 8-6 in the Big Ten, 14-1 at home. And they've got 2 top 10 wins this year. A couple nights ago, just picked up a win over number 5 Indiana. Earlier in the year, they beat number 8 Michigan. They went undefeated non-conference earlier to start the year. They had started something like 12-0 or some sort of that before they got into conference play. But then I don't want to say struggled because you're 8-6, but definitely not as hot as they were to begin the year. And losing some games that they easily should have won. But I mean, you got 2 top 10 wins and you're 14-1 at home. You got to like that. They got them penciled in right now as a 7th seed, which I think is interesting. I don't know that they should be any higher or lower than that because they haven't been able to show a ton of consistency. But you do have those big top 10 wins. And I think it's a fun team to watch. I think it's a fun team that might be able to do something in the tournament when we get there. But they're not really led by anybody. When you look at the box scores, it's just kind of all spread out, which I think is obviously very good for a team. But you got Alexis Markowski, 6-time Big Ten Freshman of the Week, and she's leading the team in scoring and rebounding. Anytime you got a freshman that's leading your team in scoring and rebounding, you got to love it. And especially looking forward to the next 3 years. Yeah, it's definitely a bright side, but it's been a good year this year for Nebraska. And I think it's going to be an exciting team to watch. I mean, you get into tournament time and you're able to win your first game and, maybe win a second one. And then you got a tough opponent in maybe the, round of 32 or Sweet 16. You got 2 top 10 wins already this year. So I think this is a team that might be able to make a run. But we'll have to see. It's a fun team to watch and we've seen the highs and lows and a little bit of inconsistency from them, but 19-6, in middle of February, I think you obviously take that every year. So it'll be a fun team to watch, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see him down the stretch.
Absolutely. So, we can go ahead and flip it over to OU softball now. Obviously defending national champions, returning a lot of the key pieces from last year, Jocelyn Allo, Jada Coleman. They've started season 5-0, including a win over number 3 UCLA. And I mean, they've got a phenomenal freshman pitching, Jordy Ball. She records 14 strikeouts against the number 3 team in the country as a true freshman. I mean, it's almost unheard of. I mean, she's obviously from Nebraska, former Huskers commit. Mm-hmm. She's phenomenal. And she's got a little crow hop going. They call her a few times. But I mean, 14 strikeouts, first couple crow hops. I think you take that all day. They're currently outscoring opponents 41-1, which is it's just dominant. And the one run obviously came from number 3 team in the country, UCLA, who they beat 4-1. Like I said, some key pieces returning. Jocelyn Allo, 8 career home runs, only 7 away from tying former Oklahoma superstar Lord Chamberlain at 95. Obviously going to break that record this year, barring something catastrophic. but yeah, I mean, they just look like they're set and ready to roll again.
Yeah. I mean, they played UCLA and won. I don't want to say handily, but easily beat UCLA, who's number 3 in the country. You're coming off the defending national champions. You've got Jordy Ball, who I don't know if you've seen her high school stats, being from up here in Nebraska, but it like stupid. Like it, I mean, it looked like a major leaguer pitching to a bunch of high schoolers. It almost unfair, and then just she's just a freshman. And then you've got probably one of the best college softball players all time in Jocelyn Allo in the lineup. And that's, not discrediting the rest of the lineup, who is just as good. You're outscoring your opponents 41-1 in a tournament where you played the number 3 team in the country as well. I mean, they definitely should be the favorites in every single game this year. And it's not going to happen because it's softball and you can just get beat, but this team might just go undefeated. I mean, they've got the potential to. I say it's not going to happen, not because I don't think this team could do it. They absolutely could, but just because of the nature of the sport, it's obviously tough to do. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised this team winning 20, 25 games in a row. They're the best team in the country. There's no reason they shouldn't be number 1 at any point in the year. I mean, I mean, they're good. That's about all you can say. This is the best team in the country. And no, I don't think anybody's a close second right now. They're going to hammer everybody they play until they get into, some tougher teams down the road, but they're good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not a whole lot to say there. I mean, because that's what it comes down to. Yep. They're the best team in the country. Pencilman, number 1. Yep. They should be the favorites in every game. That's about it. We'll hop over to Nebraska softball a little bit. Coming off a weekend, they're at Northern Iowa playing in the Dome. One of the fun things about softball that you're able to get on a field early, even though you're not outside. They go 2-3 there. Some close losses. Got walked off in one game. Abby Squire, one of the outfielders for the Huskers, a very good weekend. Goes 8 for 16 with a double and 2 home runs. She's named the Co-Big Ten Player of the Week. Anytime you're hitting 500 with a double and 2 home runs, you take that. She hit a pretty clutch late home run against the game against Northern Iowa, but obviously they weren't able to pull that one out. Northern Iowa walks them off. I think it should be a pretty good team to watch. They lost some games they should have won, but they'll be a good team to watch this year. We'll see what they can do. They head down to Las Cruces, New Mexico, where New Mexico State is located. They play in the Troy Cox Classic this weekend. They got New Mexico State, Southeastern Louisiana, UT Arlington, Northern Colorado, and Iowa State this weekend. Iowa State, who they played obviously this past weekend. We'll see. They get them again. Maybe they can pull out a win. Fun team to watch. I think it should be interesting to see how they do, how they perform down the road. Not the weekend they wanted to open the season, but should be a fun team to watch. And we'll see if Abby Squire is able to build off her weekend and see what she's able to put up this year. I don't know. We'll see how that team goes. I don't know that it's going to be OU caliber, but we'll see. We'll head back over to the Sooners. They opened the season in Puerto Rico at the Puerto Rico Classic. OU is supposed to be one of the best teams in the country again. Man, they got a good team. You've got transfer Chris Goddard from Rutgers. He's able to win it. OU comes back from 4 strokes down to win the Puerto Rico Classic over Georgia, who was leading the tournament, I believe, after the first 2 days, and were ahead for most of the tournament. But OU is able to come from behind and beat them. This is a good team, man. We'll let you get your thoughts out on it. I think it's a good team.
Yep, absolutely. Obviously, OU men's golf national championship in recent memory. They got there last year, came up just a little short. A couple players struggling down the stretch, but they just reload this year. They pick up Chris Goddard from Rutgers, who was Big Ten Player of the Year in 2019-2020 season, and he's ranked number 1 in the collegiate golf rankings. And like you said, came from 4 strokes down. They shot 20 under as a team in the final round. They came in at 59 under for the tournament, which set the school record for score versus par all time. And anytime you can do that, you're obviously, I mean, you expect to win. And they did win by 6. Georgia obviously came in second, but it wasn't the only record that got broken for the Sooners. Patrick Welch
Mm-hmm.
broke the OU single round record of score versus par with a 10 under 62. And obviously, Goddard won. Welch finished tied 6th, and then Drew Goodman finished tied 9th, and Logan McAllister tied 16th. Anytime you can get 4 guys on the top 16 players, that's just a really, really good team. They're ranked 3rd in the country. They beat Pepperdine in the fall in October in the East Lake Cup, who Pepperdine's ranked number 2, who they lost to in the national championship last year. And they had a couple freshmen win their matchups in the stroke play tournament there at the end. So it's a team with a lot of experience. Welch is a senior, Goddard's obviously a senior, but also some young guys who can really hit the ball, and should be another exciting year in national championship expectations.
Yeah, this team's loaded. I think this is definitely one of the better OU teams that we have seen in a long time. Obviously, what they're able to do down there in Norman is incredible. They got a very, very good golf team year in and year out. But you got Chris Goddard, who transfers in from Rutgers, number 1 ranked in the country right now. You got guys who have been there and done it, like Logan McAllister. You got Patrick Welch, who goes out and breaks the school record. That's a recipe for success, and that's a team that's ready to win and ready to get back to the national championship. It seemed like the guys were just kind of tearing it up down there a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you have a collegiate golfer shooting 10 under 62, obviously I'm not going to say that the course was easy, but you're not shooting a 62, and you're not shooting 20 under as a team every tournament you walk into.
Yep.
But also, granted, you're down in Puerto Rico and you're opening your season up. You don't expect to play the toughest golf course in the world down there, and but it's a good team. I mean, they're ranked 3rd in the country right now. That might change after a couple weeks here once everybody gets playing. It's a good team. I mean, they're loaded again. It's what we've seen in recent years, and I think they're going to be right back in the national championship conversation and are going to be one of the favorites.
Absolutely.
Yep. Nebraska golf opens their season this weekend. I believe they're down in Arizona. They haven't got things kicked off yet, but we'll cover them once they get started. But speaking of this weekend, man, we got some college baseball starting this weekend. Division I opens up. Obviously, most other divisions, actually all other divisions have opened up already. But Division I obviously always last. We'll start with the Huskers. They head down to Sam Houston State in Huntsville, Texas. Sam Houston obviously have had very good programs as of late. They got a machine down there, one of the mid-majors down there in Texas. But this Nebraska team, man, they're definitely one of the favorites in the Big Ten and favorites to host a regional as well. That is definitely the goal this year. Head coach Will Bolt has made that clear to the guys as well, and to obviously the fans, that the expectation is to be the number 1 seed in a regional and host. They want everything to run through Lincoln, and this is a team that definitely can do it. They've lost a lot from last year, but they also are returning a lot as well, which I think is exciting for a team like this. I mean, you lose Spencer Schwellenbach, the 2-way guy. He goes to the Braves in the draft. You lose Cade Povich, big pitcher on the mound for him. He goes to the Twins in the draft. You lose guys that, a lot of production from guys like Jackson Hallmark. You lost some key pieces, but also you've got some key pieces coming back. I mean, you got guys like Max Anderson, who I believe was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. You can quote me on if I'm wrong there, but plays 3rd base for him. His ability to step in and as a true freshman just light it up is obviously very, very crucial. It's expected to be a weakness when you have a freshman starting for any sport. But then the dude goes out and hits over 300 and does whatever he's able to do, is a phenomenal infielder. And it turns that weakness into a strength, which is key for good teams and teams that want to go far. But some guys you want to watch: Max Anderson, as I had mentioned, Griffin Everett is going to be catching this year, named one of the captains. He should be a leader this year behind the plate. And obviously, when you have a catcher as a team captain for you, that relationship between the pitcher and catcher obviously improves a lot. And on the mound, I think Shea Shanaman's going to be a big name to watch for the Huskers. Named the game 2 starter, I believe, down there in Huntsville, Kyle Perry being the one. But I believe Will Bolt has come out and said that it's kind of a 1A, 1B situation. Not really a one better than the other, but more just we're going to see how things shake out. And I think Shea Shanaman is going to be a guy that is expected to have a big year. But, this Nebraska team last year goes down to Arkansas, and Arkansas, number 1 team in the country, expected to be pretty much a lock to Omaha. And they play them real close, and probably the hardest regional last year. You've got, Arkansas, Nebraska, NC State, and then New Jersey Institute of Technology, who as a 4 seed was still very good. Ultimately, the Husker season ends down there in Fayetteville. And a cool thing that I think that Will Bolt is doing for this team, he has actually taken a picture of Arkansas beating Nebraska, I believe, the scoreboard, and has put it up on the practice plan every day. So guys are seeing that every day. And that's actually what happened to him when Will Bolt was at Nebraska. They had lost to Stanford in the Super Regionals, and they had put a picture up of Stanford dogpiling going to the College World Series. And that's kind of the fire that he mentions and talks about, that he hated seeing that every day. And there's a story that when they locked their bid to go to the World Series the next year, the first thing he did was went in the locker room and ripped that picture down. And that's sort of what he's trying to get for this team this year. They're not going to get beat again. And this is a team that I think is going to be very good and probably a favorite in the Big Ten. Obviously the Big Ten, not the biggest baseball conference, but you've got teams like Michigan, who was in the College World Series final just a couple of years ago, and another good school in Indiana, and there is some good baseball in the Big Ten. Obviously not the best in the country, but I definitely think this is a Nebraska team that should be able to win the Big Ten and hopefully host a regional. So.
Absolutely. OU also gets underway in baseball this weekend. They'll be down at Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas, for the State Farm College Baseball Showdown. Auburn, Arizona, and Michigan will also be down there. Sooners team coming off a disappointing season last year. 2020 obviously is going to be a question mark for a long, long time. A lot of really good pitching on that team, and they were hot early, and then obviously COVID hit and the season was canceled. But they had their media day last weekend, and Peyton Graham and Jake Bennett, 2 guys they're really excited about this year. They were kind of open about the locker room was pretty divided last season, and they had to work on that in the offseason. And they were picked 6 to win in the Big 12, excuse me. And I mean, we'll see what they can do. We'll see if they can make the postseason. Obviously, lots of struggles in the recent past, but we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting team to watch. But as you mentioned, that 2020 team is definitely going to be a big question mark because you lost so much during that year, and then also you lost guys that were coming in, like Ed Howard, who was drafted by the Cubs, shortstop, supposed to go to OU. You lose a lot in that 2020 year. But I also feel like this team has a lot that is coming back and some guys coming in that I think are going to be really good. Obviously Peyton Graham, one of the leaders on this team, lit it up last year. He was fortunate enough to be named on the preseason Golden Spikes watch list. Dude can really swing it. And as a leader, as you mentioned, they had some issues in the locker room last year, but yeah, that happens a lot among a lot of teams. And I think it's something that you don't see kind of come out, and most teams kind of just sweep it under the rug. And, you might hear it within the team, but it doesn't really get out. But I think being open about it and acknowledging that's something that held you back is key in especially a team like this that is picked, 6th in the Big 12. Dude, the Big 12 is loaded in baseball. I mean, Texas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. It's one of the best, if not the best, maybe outside of the SEC in baseball. And to be 6th in the Big 12 is not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, only 9 teams in the Big 12. Iowa State not having baseball You know, technically bottom half, but pretty middle of the road. But I definitely think this is a team that can maybe surprise some people. You're definitely not up there at the top dogs, Texas and Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, but I definitely don't think a bad team by any means. You've got some guys that I think, maybe can make some waves this year among the college baseball world. Cade Horton being one of them, obviously from Norman, was supposed to be a two-way guy, supposed to play football and baseball. I believe no longer with the football team. Obviously when you're stuck behind the OU quarterbacks that they've had in recent years, there wasn't I don't want to say much of a future there because he's not a good quarterback. Obviously was phenomenal in high school in both sports, but it's tough focusing on two sports and being behind some of the best in the country in both sports. But with that being said, is able to play two different positions in college. Is listed as an infielder pitcher. We saw him do both at Norman High. Fortunately enough, I was able to play against him. A phenomenal athlete. Dude can absolutely pitch and can absolutely hit and has a great glove. He's legit. You don't have him last year. He has Tommy John, misses the whole year. Always kind of a question mark coming back from Tommy John, but I feel like in recent years, doctors and surgeons have it pretty much guaranteed that you're going to come back. I think that's going to be a big name to watch. Had all sorts of honors coming out of high school and going into his freshman year. Unfortunately, gets injured, not able to play. Him and Peyton Graham, I think, are going to be big names for the Sooners to watch. And the last one I got in here, Mason Lowe, an infielder out of Mustang. He goes to Hutchinson Community College in Kansas, plays phenomenally well there. I believe spends 3 years there due to COVID, getting that extra year. Comes to OU. I don't know how much time he'll get. We'll have to see. Obviously with Peyton Graham there, but is another guy that I think could be big for the Sooners if he gets a lot of play time. Another guy fortunate enough I've been able to play against. Dude's an athlete and can really swing it. Got a good glove. We'll see how he's able to come in and fill some of the holes they lost. I mean, these guys lost a lot of big names. You've got Tyler Hardman goes to the Yankees. Wyatt Holds, another arm another one I faced who's I just say is incredible. Seeing him in high school, he was good. And, once he got to OU was obviously good as well. He goes to the Red Sox. You lose Jason Ruffcorn. He goes to the Phillies. You lose a lot, but you got some guys coming in and I mean, anytime a team has a Golden Spikes preseason watch list guy on their team, you definitely should be able to make some noise. So it's going to be an interesting team to follow. Not the absolute favorite in the Big 12, but also not a team that I think is going to get pushed over. You definitely got to show up in Norman with your A game and be ready to win because this is a team that definitely could win a series over you. And you open up the season down in the Texas Rangers Stadium, Globe Life. You got some absolute powerhouses of Auburn, Arizona, and Michigan. It's a good way to get your season going. I mean, you're facing the best right away. Obviously, Arizona and Michigan being in the College World Series final here in the last couple of years, both obviously being defeated, but you've got good teams there, and you get to face three different conferences as well. You get one from the SEC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten. You're not seeing the same teams over and over and over. You're getting to see baseball from all around the country. And then a couple weeks later, they get to go and play in Minute Maid, Houston Astros Stadium. So a couple of trips that I think that OU should enjoy, and it's going to be a fun team to watch.
Absolutely. They just announced their opening weekend rotation. Jake Bennett will pitch on Friday, David Salen on Saturday, and Chaz Martinez on Sunday. Jake Bennett, obviously, I said earlier, guy they're really excited about, but some tough competition coming this weekend, so we'll see what they can get done.
Yeah, I think this weekend's going to say a lot about this team. I mean, they could go down there and they could pick up 2 out of 3, and all of a sudden the Big 12 is kind of on alert when you've got a team that goes and beats either Auburn, Arizona, or Michigan. But it's not going to be easy. You got 3 very, very good teams. But to open the season with teams like that, I definitely think is a good thing. You see a lot of teams go down and play, down south against some teams that might not be, the caliber that these teams are. But, this is one thing that you got to love about college baseball. You're able to go play in a major league stadium. Fortunately, they get to play in 2 of them this year, and play 3 of the best teams in the country right away to open your season. It should be exciting. It's going to be must watch. And anytime you get to play in the under the lights inside of a dome of a brand new stadium, I think you're going to get the best baseball from not only OU, but all 3 teams they play this weekend. Yeah, definitely a team I think to keep your eyes on, and obviously Norman and OU fans love OU baseball, but it kind of been a little bit of the little brother recently to OSU, excuse me, who just built that brand new park up there. They got a lot of in-state and even competition from Texas as well. The Red River rivalry there. Texas being probably the best team in the country, preseason ranked 1 in almost every poll. They're loaded. But it's Big 12 baseball. You got to show up to play every weekend. And I think all these teams have to show up to play against OU. I definitely don't think this is a team you walk over by any means. When it comes to the end of the year, we'll have to see how they play, if they're going to get into the NCAA tournament. Definitely a team I think is probably kind of on that line. You got to see how you're able to pick up some games against the big teams. Definitely can't get swept because in the Big 12, once you get swept once, that can kind of go downhill quickly, because you can have a series against say Texas, and then turn around and you got to play Texas Tech or OSU, and you can get all those in a row, and if things don't go right, then it can go really, really wrong. Fun team to watch, and a team that I'm excited for. I hope that either one of us are able to get down there for some games, and always a very fun place to watch games, and the fans get into it for sure. As you may know, I know that's a hot topic around Norman and the OU fan base, the OU baseball fans. But I mean, they do a good job. They definitely take baseball serious, and although they're picked 6th in the Big 12, not a team I think you just walk
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is probably one of my favorite parts of the year for athletics. I mean, outside of kind of that, October, November, when all the sports are, starting up and you got baseball finishing, this is probably one of my other favorite times of the year. I mean, you got college basketball, you got softball, you got baseball starting up, you got golf starting up as well. We just got the Super Bowl. There's a lot going on and a lot to follow for both fan bases and fan bases of all teams, especially. Hopefully the weather is able to cooperate, and these baseball and golf teams, for that matter, are able to, and I guess softball as well, are able to get most of their games in. Hopefully things don't get shaken up too much. That's always tough, especially for Nebraska. You get a lot of games on the road being up north like that, and that could be tough. But I think we got some really good teams we want to watch. Obviously, OU softball and OU golf, some of the best in the country. You got Nebraska softball, who's definitely not a team to sleep on. I definitely think a team to watch. You've got 2 hot women's basketball teams coming down here in the end. Both projected to make the tournament. You got a couple baseball teams I think are going to be really exciting to watch. One picked in the Big 10 as a favorite. We got a lot to talk about coming down here into the spring season. I think it's going to be exciting for both fan bases for sure. Lots of sports, lots to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then spring football will be getting underway.
Yep. I
Just
didn't
about a
even
month,
mention spring
so
football. Yeah.
we'll definitely be covering some of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be busy, and that's what we love. As I mentioned, probably one of my favorite parts of the year. It just seems like everybody's doing something. Every sport is active. And then getting into March Madness might be outside of baseball, might be my favorite postseason tournament. So it'll be exciting. And as I mentioned, we got some good teams to watch down the stretch, and we'll be excited to see how everything plays out here. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys for watching. We'll be back at you guys again next week. Got some teams and some games we'll have to cover next week, and excited for everybody to get their season started and see how things shake out. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you again next week. See ya.